We're going now, colleagues, to file item 254. File item 254, which is AB 1320. 254, the floor manager of 254 is Senator Wolk. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 1320 by Assemblymember Mainshine, enacting to alcoholic beverages and declaring the urge thereof to take effect immediately.
Senator Wolk.
Madam President, Senators, 1320 provides a tied house exemption for KAABOO, a group that hosting a music festival next month at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. This will allow alcoholic beverage manufacturers to advertise and sponsor the event. The bill has received unanimous bipartisan support, no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion on file item 254? Seeing and hearing none. Is there any objection to substituting a unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none. Ayes 38 on the urgency. Ayes 38 on the measure. The measure passes.
Madam President, may I request immediate transmittal to, not back to the Senate, immediate transmittal to the governor. Thank you.
Without objection, that will be the order. Moving now to file item 269. File item 269. Senator Leyva, Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 465 by Assemblymember Roger Hernandez, enacting to employment.
Senator Leyva.
Thank you, Madam President and members. I know we've had a long day, but please listen closely. I rise happily to support AB 465. This bill will ensure that waivers of important employment rights and procedures arising under California law are made voluntary and with consent of the employee, consent of the worker. Increasingly, employers have been requesting these clauses to be signed as a condition of employment. A recent Wall Street Journal article reported that in 2014, 43%, almost half, of all employers required workers to sign these agreements. There is certainly nothing voluntary about these agreements when they are forced upon workers in a take-it-or-leave-it basis and as a condition of employment. We all know that there is not equal bargaining power between an employer and a worker who is desperate to find a job and support their family. AB 465 simply attempts to bring some balance and fairness to the equation by ensuring that these agreements are truly voluntary. Specifically, this bill accomplishes the following. It ensures that these agreements will not be required as a condition of employment. It prohibits an employer from discriminating or retaliating against an employee who refuses to sign such an agreement, and it ensures that such agreements are knowing, voluntary, and in writing. The author has attempted to respond to the concerns of opposition. The bill has already been amended to eliminate the $10,000 civil penalty. In addition, some opponents have argued that this bill should not apply to employees represented by counsel in negotiating such agreements. This bill has been amended to exclude such employees. But at the end of the day, no worker should be forced to choose between a job and giving up their fundamental labor rights and procedures. Many of the important bills that we work so hard to pass are essentially meaningless if on the first day of that job, workers are forced to sign away their rights. In conclusion, let me just make the following points. AB 465 is not, let me repeat, is not preempted by federal law. The federal law preemption doctrine is premised on the notion that these agreements are voluntary and entered into with the consent of the employee. Mandatory condition of employment is not voluntary. All this bill does is ensure that these agreements are in fact voluntary. Federal law simply does not preempt involuntary arbitration agreements. Case law does not adequately protect workers. The reality is that getting a contract struck down is very difficult. Most workers, especially low-wage workers, simply do not have the resources to litigate these clauses. They will just give up and likely give up the underlying claims as well. Arbitration is not good or fair for workers. The opposition cites data from 2003 and 2004 for the proposition that individuals fare well in arbitration. But the use of arbitration agreements in employment has skyrocketed since that time. A more recent 2015 analysis of arbitration data shows that workers win less and win less in arbitration. And that is only for workers who choose to actually go through the process. The vast majority of workers simply drop their claims rather than go through forced company arbitration. I would just say, members, that when I was the president of my local union, we liked arbitration, but that was a more fair balance. That was a labor union and an employer who both had the right to pick the arbitrator. In these forced mandatory condition of employment arbitration, the worker would have to represent themselves in an arbitration where the employer picks the arbitrator. Members, I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Leyva. Debate or discussion on this item? Any debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Anderson? No. Bates? No. Bell? Aye. Berryhill? No. Block? Aye. Cannella? No. De Leon? Fuller? No. Gaines? No. Galgiani? Glazer? Hall? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Hernandez? Aye. Hertzberg? Aye. Hill? Aye. Hueso? Aye. Huff? No. Jackson? Aye. Lada? Leno? Aye. Leyva? Aye. Liu? Aye. McGuire? Aye. Mendoza? Aye. Mitchell? Monning? Aye. Morlock? No. Morrell? No. Wynn? No. Nielsen? No. Pan? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Roth? Runner? No. Stone? Vidak? No. Wykowski? Aye. Wolk?
Please call the absent members.
De Leon? Galgiani? Glazer? No. Lada? Mitchell? Aye. Roth? Stone? No. Wolk?
Please call the absent members.
De Leon? Aye. Galgiani? Lada? Aye. Roth? Wolk?
Ayes 22, noes 15. The measure passes.
File item 123, AB 1197. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 1197 by Assemblymember Bonilla, an act relating to depositions.
Thank you, Madam President and colleagues. This is AB 1197 by Assemblywoman Bonilla, which upholds the very important impartiality of court reporters and protects consumers. This measure requires the disclosure of ongoing contracts between court reporters or court reporter firms and the parties participating in a deposition. Court reporters play a critical role in our judicial process. They are the impartial ministerial officers of the court. Their job is to take down verbatim the testimony that takes place during a deposition. Yet court reporter firms arrange supposedly impartial depositions while at the same time, not all of them, but some of them, provide kickbacks or trial presentation services to their clients in the same court case. This is a way they want to assure continued business. But requiring contract disclosures will shed light on the nature of these relationships and potentially uncover where an ongoing relationship rises to the level of a financial interest which is prohibited by law for obvious reasons. We must protect the impartiality of these proceedings. Another consequence of court reporting contracts is the potential for cost shifting, because evidence exists showing that some court reporting firms offer low prices for contractual deposition services and make up the loss by increasing the cost for copies of depositions, which frequently take place by one of the parties. When they need additional information, you can't photocopy your own deposition, you have to get a copy of it. And this is a way that some of these companies take care of getting back the profits they lose with these kinds of cost shiftings that go on. And non-clients have no choice but to order copies, as I mentioned, from the court reporting firms. The disclosure requirement of AB 1197 will alert opposing counsel, regardless of from what side, but will alert opposing counsel to monitor their invoices over time to determine if they are receiving fair pricing. This measure provides, a simple and modest solution to the issues that can occur on ongoing contracts. This bill has received no votes, and I think is critically important to maintain the integrity of our judicial process, no matter which side of a case one is on. With that, I would urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or debate on the measure? Any discussion or debate? Any objection to the use of a unanimous roll call? Seeing none, ayes 38, no 0. There's an objection? I'm sorry. There is not objection. Ayes 38, no 0. The measure passes. Moving on, members, to file item 155. Assembly Bill 675. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 675 by Assemblymember Alejo, an act relating to rental vehicles.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I am pleased to present AB 675 on behalf of Assemblymember Alejo, which updates and modernizes the statute regarding agreements between rental car companies and their customers. The main provision of the bill works to increase transparency in rental car pricing by allowing rental car companies to fully disclose to consumers all the public taxes and fees levied beyond those already permitted. This provision of the bill will not change any consumer safeguards, including the requirement that a rental car company give the customer a total price upon purchase. This bill received unanimous bipartisan support in the Senate Judiciary Committee, which I chair, and it has no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Any discussion or debate on the measure? Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Bates. Aye. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Galgiani. Aye. Glazer. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Hueso. Aye. Huff. Aye. Jackson. Aye. Lara. Leno. Aye. Leva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell.
Aye.
Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Aye. Morrell. Aye. Wynn. Aye. Nielsen. Aye. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Runner. Aye. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Aye. Wachowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye. Glazer, aye.
Call the opposite members, please.
De Leon. Lara.
Excellent. Ayes 38, no 0. The measure passes. And Senator Jackson, we're going to move on to file item 178, correct?
If you would. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, that's AB 552. Please read.
Assembly Bill 552 by Assemblymember O'Donnell, an act relating to public contracts.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Madam President and members. AB 552 seeks to provide greater certainty in damages arising from public works project delays. When a contractor fails to complete a public works project on time, public agencies seek damages from the contractor for the delay. Public works contracts usually contain specific dollar amounts agencies can collect from contractors for each day they fail to meet their deadline.
Senator Jackson, I apologize for the interruption, but it's come to our attention that amendments are pending on this bill, and so it's not eligible to be taken up.
Well, my apologies for not knowing that. So without that, I withdraw my brilliant remark.
And we look forward to hearing them the point in time that you can take it up. Colleagues, with that, we will proceed in the daily file to motions and resolutions. Motions and resolutions. Senator Hernandez.
Yes, I'd like to move Assemblymember Bonta's bill AB 72 to the inactive file.
The desk will note. Motions and resolutions. Members, Senator Nielsen, for what purpose do you rise?
Madam President, may I read or submit a letter to the file? A letter to the file,
To the Journal, sir?
to the Journal, I'm sorry.
Yes, please proceed.
This is a letter clarifying the intent of SB 525, it amended the Respiratory Care Act. There seems to be some confusion of legislative intent, and the purpose of this letter to the file is just to clarify.
Thank you, sir, and the desk will note. Senator Hall, for what purpose do you rise?
Yes, Madam Chair, adjourn in memory.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Madam President and members, as Vice Chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, I rise to adjourn in memory of the Honorable Horace Julian Bond. Mr. Bond was born on January 14, 1940 in Nashville, Tennessee. Mr. Bond was the co-author of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, founder and former president of the Southern Poverty Law Center, board chairman for the NAACP, and a respected civil rights leader. In 1965, Mr. Bond was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives. Shortly before he was supposed to take office, Mr. Bond endorsed a statement by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee opposing the Vietnam War. The Georgia House accused Mr. Bond of treason and refused to seat him. A federal appeals court upheld the decision. But on December 5, 1966, the Supreme Court unanimously upheld his right to free speech and ordered Georgia to seat him. Mr. Bond spent 2 decades in the Georgia State House and Senate, where he was a leader on issues including improving educational outcomes, fighting for civil rights, and increasing access to health care. African Americans and all Americans owe Mr. Bond a great debt of gratitude for his work to create a more fair, a more just, and a more equal nation. And I thank him for lighting the path for African Americans and other minorities to more fully participate in the democracy of America. He is no stranger to the African American community and particularly the minority community. We ask this honorable body to adjourn in a great loss of the Honorable Julian Bond.
Thank you very much. Senator Leno, on the same item?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to join in this moment of reflection on the life of an extraordinary human being, Julian Bond. The story of the Georgia legislature trying to usurp the vote of his constituents is history in itself, but was resolved finally by the U.S. Supreme Court. Clearly, a man of great dignity and intelligence and articulation and passion. I want to remember him today with thoughts of a brief encounter I had in, I think it was 2007. He was in California in the Bay Area at that time, and he was there in support of the concept of equal marriage rights for all Californians. We were authoring a bill at the time that would have provided those equal marriage rights. He was one of the lone and early voices from ethnic communities in support of allowing all people to be able to marry the individual he or she loved. And he spoke of it long before it became a national issue. He was among those, including the American Civil Liberties Union in the 1970s and 1980s, seeing this clearly for what it is and always has been, which is a civil rights issue. I also want to recognize that it was our own Alice Huffman who led the California chapter of the NAACP for many years, who also was an early advocate and loud and articulate voice for equal marriage rights, who took a lot of criticisms from many of the membership of the NAACP at that time. Julian Bond came to California in her defense. So I just want to thank him for his clear-sightedness as to what civil rights and human rights actually means on the ground in real time. A visionary, a man of courage, and it is a great loss. We do miss him. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Leno. Senator Monning.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I too rise in memorial to Julian Bond. I had the honor of knowing him through his visits to Monterey County, and his resume, which was shared by my good friend and colleague from Los Angeles, has been featured in many obituaries. Many knew of Julian Bond from his advocacy in the civil rights movement, his support for LGBT equality. The list goes on and on. I had the honor of accompanying him and his wife, Pamela Horowitz. They joined us at the Monterey County Jazz Festival. He'd always wanted to attend. A few years ago, they were able to join us at the Jazz Festival. And it was amazing to watch. You know, he's such a distinguished-looking individual. And at the Jazz Festival, we'd watch people coming down the aisles, and they'd recognize him. And they'd stop, and they'd pause, and you could see the inner conversation, should I enter his airspace or not? And so many people approached him during the course of that weekend, and they would make sure, aren't you Julian Bond? And then just virtually everybody said, thank you, thank you. And there wasn't much else more that had to be said except thank you. He was a man not only of courage and a fighter, but he was a man of dignity, a man of respect for others, even enemies. And so you had in this one individual a lion and a champion for civil rights, and yet one of the most gentle, kind, deliberate individuals. And the hurdles he cleared in his life are legend. The respect for him in the district I represent, there will be a special memorial for him at the Bethel Baptist Church in Seaside a week from tonight. It was going to be last week, and it was postponed because of the outpouring of community interest in needing to provide for a larger facility. So Julian Bond has passed. His legend and his spirit live large and live with everybody he's touched. And I would just conclude by saying, you know, too often we look at a champion for civil rights and what he did to advocate for equality and justice for African Americans. But in so doing, he contributed to all of us and to all of America. And so in that spirit, thank my colleague from Compton and the others who have spoken, and viva Julia Bond. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Monning. Senator Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just wanted to add my voice to the chorus today in recognizing a true American hero. I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Bond on several occasions and told him my belief that I was born too late, that I was born in the wrong decade, that I clearly would have stood side by side as a member of SNCC, just knowing myself and my temperament and the kinds of issues that motivate me to action. But to think in that era, given what they were up against, for young people to understand fundamentally the kind of America they wanted to live in, the kind of America they wanted to bear children and raise children in, and to organize at such tender young ages is truly phenomenal. I think it's important as we memorialize great American heroes that we always take with us and make a commitment to breathe life into some of the work they've done. And I think one great way to do that is to look at quotes and look at words that they have uttered. And an amazing quote that I discovered several years from one of his writings is a way in which he characterized the concept of violence. And he characterized violence as when black children going to school for 12 years and receiving 6 years' worth of education. I thought that was really profound and will continue to guide the work I do a generation or two late here in the California State Senate.
Great. Thank you, Senator Mitchell. Senator Hancock?
Well, a generation or two after Senator Mitchell, I rise to add my voice to this adjournment in memory of Julian Bond because he was a high school classmate of mine. So we grew up together. We both went to a Quaker boarding school in Pennsylvania. Some of you may know Julian's father, Horace Mann Bond, was the dean of one of the well-known historically African-American colleges. And he was a wonderful kid. And he dated a good friend of mine, so I knew him. And I can say that everything that people have pointed out about Julian, smart, poised, steadfast, quiet, but with enormous strength, was always there. And he was a joy to know and grow up with, and we did reconnect, as so many of us did. I think he was in California quite a bit of the time, and he was a man for all seasons. So I reconnected with him around issues of justice reform and corrections and rehabilitation leading to safer communities. But it is wonderful to see the legacy he has left and to think with all of you about how lucky we were to have him on this earth doing the good work that he did. And I hope we will adjourn in his memory.
Thank you very much, Senator Hancock. Julian Bond, a great American. I believe we do have another adjourn in memory. Monty, would you like to bring, Senator Hancock, excuse me, would you like to bring that forward?
Yeah, thank you. Members, I think I'm of a certain age because I have another one of my classmates in high school who passed away a month or so ago. Peter Grad, television executive producer and philanthropist, who was also a high school classmate of mine. He lived in LA. He was for many years the president of Mary Tyler Moore Studios, later worked also for Paramount and 20th Century Fox Television. When he retired, Peter discovered a true passion as a philanthropist with his wife, Laurie Burroughs Grad. He worked to raise money for the Alzheimer's Association in tribute to Laurie's father, Abe Burroughs, the well-known playwright and director. But Peter was a warm and loving man, generous and full of joy. He will always be held in the hearts of his wife of 47 years, Lori, his cherished son and daughter-in-law, Nicholas Grad and Carolyn Bernstein, and his grandchildren, Lucas and Georgia, and his many, many friends. So I ask that we adjourn in his memory today.
Great. Thank you, Senator Hancock, and our thoughts and prayers are with Peter Grad. Members, are there any other adjourned memories? If there is no other business? Oh, okay, let me clarify here. At this time, the regular session will stand in recess, and the first extraordinary session will be convened. Prayer and the pledge will be deemed complete. Committee reports will be deemed read and printed in the journal. At this time, the first extraordinary session will stand in recess, and the second extraordinary session will be convened. The prayer and the pledge will be deemed complete. Committee reports will be deemed read and printed in the journal. At this time, the second extraordinary session will stand in recess, and the regular session will be reconvened. Now, if there is no other business, great. Senator Huff, for what purpose do you rise?
Upon adjournment, Republican caucus in the Cox Lounge.
Great, thank you. Okay. Okay. Under motions and resolutions, Senator Allen.
Thank you, and I really do apologize, Senators, but I wanted to request that we reconsider AB 675. It came to my attention that there were some very last-minute amendments made to the bill that have substantially changed my understanding of the bill, and so I don't know the procedure for doing this, but I really do apologize to everybody. This was this car rental.
Are you moving to reconsider?
Yes.
Senator Allen is considering a reconsider?
I don't know what the proper
Secretary,
procedure.
please call the roll. For reconsideration.
Allen?
No.
No.
Oh, well, on the reconsideration? Yes, I vote on the reconsideration.
Allen, aye. Anderson? Bates? Aye. Bell? Aye. Berryhill? Aye. Block? Aye. Canella? De Leon? Fuller? Gaines? Galgioni? Aye. Glazer? Hall? Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Hertzberg. Hill. Aye. Hueso. Huff. Jackson. Lada. Leno. Aye. Jackson, aye. Leyva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Aye. Morrell. Wynn. Aye. Nielsen. Aye. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Runner. Aye. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Wachowski. Wolk. Aye. Hancock. We have his aye. Huff, aye. Fuller, aye. Morrell, aye.
Ayes 27, no 0. The motion for reconsider carries. Senator Fuller, the desk is clear.
Thank you. We will reconvene Thursday at 9 o'clock.
The Senate will be in recess until 3:30, at which time the adjournment motion will be made. We will reconvene Thursday at 9 a.m.